What if your biggest goals are actually destroying your future? I spent years failing until I discovered a hidden truth. The key to massive success isn't hard work, it's doing almost nothing. Stay until the end to learn the one tiny shift that makes transformation feel embarrassingly easy. I need to confess something painful to you. A few years ago, I sat on my bedroom floor, staring at a stack of expensive language books, and I felt completely worthless. I was exhausted, my brain was foggy, and I felt like a massive failure. I actually believed I was not smart enough to succeed. I believed I lacked the special discipline that successful people seem to possess. But I was entirely wrong, and the truth I discovered next is something that most people never realize. What if I told you that the huge, beautiful goals you are setting for yourself are exactly what is destroying your future? What if the secret to massive success is not about working harder, but actually about doing much, much less? Welcome to Glaze English. My goal is to share real stories and simple lessons that help you grow. Before we dive into this mystery that completely changed my life, please take a second to subscribe to our channel. Your support is the engine that gives us the motivation to keep creating these powerful videos for you. Now, let us go back to that moment of failure. Like many of you, I used to believe in the trap of going big or going home. I wanted quick results, and I wanted a fast transformation. I decided I was going to master a new language, so I created a brutal schedule. I promised myself I would study for 3 straight hours every single night after a long day of work. I told myself that this was what true dedication looked like. On Monday, I felt like a hero. I was incredibly motivated. I drank my coffee, I opened my books, and I studied for 3 hours. On Tuesday, I was tired, but I pushed through the pain. By Thursday, just looking at those books made my stomach hurt. I was totally burned out. By Sunday, I had quit entirely. How many times have you done exactly this? How many times have you promised yourself that tomorrow is the day everything changes? You tell yourself you will wake up at 5 in the morning, exercise for 2 hours, and study perfectly. But a week later, you are back to your old habits, feeling even more guilty than before. You blame yourself. You think you are just lazy, or that you do not have enough willpower. But here is the awakening I had on that bedroom floor. I realized my failure was not a lack of willpower at all. I did not fail because I was weak. I failed because my strategy was completely broken. I was trying to run a marathon without knowing how to walk. I finally realized that big change does not happen in one day of extreme, painful effort. Real transformation happens slowly. It happens quietly. It happens when you replace loud, temporary motivation with quiet, almost boring consistency. I'm going to show you why shrinking your goals is the only way to achieve them, and how a tiny, invisible daily action will completely transform your life. To understand this quiet power, we first have to let go of the biggest lie we have ever been told about success, the myth of motivation. I used to wake up every single morning and ask myself, do I feel like studying today? If the sun was shining, I had a great cup of coffee, and I felt happy, I would proudly say yes. But if it was a dark, rainy day, or if I had a stressful argument with someone, my answer was always no. I was constantly waiting for the perfect mood, hoping for a sudden flash of magical inspiration to push me forward. But let us be painfully honest with each other right now. Motivation is nothing more than an emotion, and human emotions are completely unstable. Some days you feel like an unstoppable warrior, and other days you just want to hide under your blankets and sleep. If you build your entire future on how you happen to feel when you wake up, your progress will always collapse. I finally realized that truly successful people do not possess a secret, endless supply of motivation. They simply stop listening to their temporary feelings when it is time to do the work. They rely on a steady routine, not a sudden burst of inspiration. This painful realization led me to the most beautiful and powerful mathematical rule in the world: the compound effect. It might sound like a boring word from a finance book, but it is the exact formula for changing who you are. I had to stop trying to be 100% better overnight. Instead, I focused on being just 1% better today. If you improve your English vocabulary or your daily discipline by just 1% every day, you do not just add those days together. The growth actually multiplies. If you keep this up for one full year, you are not just 365% better. You become 37 times stronger, smarter, and more capable than the person you were a year ago. But here is the dark trap where I used to quit, and maybe it is where you always quit too. This kind of explosive growth is completely invisible in the beginning. When you practice speaking a new language for just 10 minutes today, you will not wake up fluent tomorrow morning. When you read one page of a book tonight, you will not feel like a genius the next day. I used to hate this feeling of doing the work and seeing zero physical changes. I wanted instant rewards. But then I started thinking about planting a little seed in the ground. You pour water on that soil on Monday, and absolutely nothing happens. You water it again on Tuesday, and it still looks like a dead pile of dirt. For weeks, you pour your precious time and energy into this empty ground, and it feels completely useless. You feel foolish. But underneath that dark soil, exactly where your eyes cannot see it, that tiny seed is working furiously. It is building a deep, complex system of roots. It is gathering strength in total silence. And then, one ordinary morning, a bright green shoot breaks through the earth. The growth suddenly becomes visible and unstoppable. Your daily habits work the exact same way. Consistency is your water, and time is your sunlight. You do not need a loud, exhausting burst of energy. You just need the quiet, stubborn patience to keep watering your roots in the dark. Once we accept that the invisible growth beneath the soil is the only way to reach the sun, we must build a practical bridge between our big dreams and our daily reality. This is where I had to stop dreaming and start designing a blueprint that actually works for a normal human being like me. I realized that if I wanted my habits to stick, I had to follow the rule of making them embarrassingly small. I used to think that doing something small was a sign of weakness, but now I know it is the ultimate strategy for success. Your brain is naturally afraid of huge changes because it wants to save energy and keep you safe. When you tell your brain you are going to study English for 2 hours, it creates a mountain of stress and excuses. But when I told myself I was only going to listen to one English song or write one single sentence, my brain felt zero resistance. The goal was so tiny that it felt silly to say no. I want you to try this with me. If you want to read more, do not try to finish a chapter. Just commit to reading 3 sentences before you sleep. When you make a goal so small that it is impossible to fail, you remove the fear that keeps you stuck. The secret is that once you start those 3 sentences, you will often find the energy to read 10 pages. But even if you only read those 3 sentences, you have still won for the day. I also discovered that I did not have to find extra time in my busy day if I used a technique called habit stacking. I used to wait for the perfect moment to practice, but that moment never came because life is always chaotic. Instead, I started tying my new habits to things I was already doing automatically. I looked at my day and saw that I always make a cup of coffee at 7 in the morning. That was a strong, unshakable habit. So, I decided that as soon as I pressed the button on my coffee machine, I would practice 5 English vocabulary words while I waited for the water to boil. The coffee became the anchor that held my new habit in place. You can do the exact same thing. Maybe after you brush your teeth, you do 2 minutes of stretching. Maybe after you sit down for lunch, you read 1 page of a book. You are not creating a new schedule. You are simply building a chain of success on top of what you already do. To make this even easier, I had to learn how to manage the friction in my environment. I noticed that I often chose to scroll on my phone because it was sitting right next to me, while my books were hidden away in a different room. I was making it easy to fail and hard to succeed. I changed everything by placing my English notebook right on top of my laptop, so I had to touch it before I could start working. I made the good habits easy by putting the tools in front of my face, and I made the bad habits difficult by putting my phone in a kitchen drawer when I needed to focus. The final and most beautiful piece of this blueprint is the shift in your identity. I stopped saying, "I want to learn English," and started saying, "I am a person who learns every day." This changed everything for me. When you focus on the outcome, like a test score or a weight goal, you feel like you are struggling toward a distant shore. But when you focus on your identity, every small action is like a vote for the person you want to become. You are no longer fighting a chore. You are simply acting like the person you already are. This shift creates a sense of pride that is far more powerful than any goal. Even when you begin to embrace this new identity as someone who grows every day, I have to be completely honest with you about the difficult moments that will inevitably come. There will be mornings when the alarm goes off and your bed feels like the only safe place in the world. There will be evenings after a long, exhausting day at work when your brain feels like a heavy stone and the last thing you want to do is practice your habit. In those moments, you will feel a deep sense of laziness, and you might start to think that you are failing again. But as your companion on this journey, I want you to look at laziness differently. I have learned that laziness is rarely a sign that you are a weak person. It is usually just your brain feeling overwhelmed by a task that seems too big. When the task feels heavy, your mind naturally looks for comfort. On my darkest days, when I felt like I had no energy left to give, I started using what I call the 5-minute bargain. I would sit down and tell myself, I am only going to do this for 5 minutes. If I still want to quit after 5 minutes, I give myself full permission to stop and go to sleep. This little negotiation is a miracle because it breaks the mental resistance. Almost every single time, once I started, the heavy feeling disappeared and I ended up practicing for 20 or 30 minutes. But even on the days when I truly did stop after 5 minutes, I still won. I won because I showed up. I kept the promise I made to myself, and that is what builds real strength. However, we must also talk about a very silent and dangerous enemy, the dark side of the compound effect. Just as your small good habits are building your future, your small bad habits are quietly taking it away. The danger of a bad habit is that it feels so harmless in the moment. Skipping one workout, scrolling on your phone for just 10 extra minutes, or eating one unhealthy meal doesn't ruin your life today. Because the damage is invisible, we tell ourselves it doesn't matter. But if you scroll for 10 minutes every day, that becomes 60 hours of wasted life every year. That is time you could have used to become fluent in a language or build a new business. Bad habits are like a comfortable chair in a dark room. They are so easy to sit in, but very hard to get out of. We must become hyper-aware of these tiny, negative choices before they compound into a mountain of regret. When you do slip up, and you will because we are all human, you must follow one golden rule that saved my life. Never miss twice. Missing one day is an accident. Life happens, and sometimes we just need to rest. Forgive yourself for that one day immediately. But missing 2 days in a row is the start of a new bad habit. It is the beginning of a downward spiral that is very hard to stop. The most important moment in your entire journey isn't when you are feeling motivated and perfect. It is the moment you decide to get back on track after a failure. You don't need to be perfect to change your life. You just need to be resilient enough to never let a mistake happen 2 days in a row. Protect your routine with everything you have, because that routine is the only thing standing between the person you are and the person you want to become. Once you understand how to protect your routine from failure, you begin to see that your future is not a distant mountain to climb, but a series of small choices you make right here, right now. We have traveled through the science of the brain and the math of the universe together today. I want you to carry one core truth with you as we finish this journey. You do not rise to the level of your massive goals. You fall to the level of your daily systems. You can write the most beautiful dreams on a piece of paper, But if your daily habits are weak, your results will remain weak. However, if you focus on your system, your success becomes a mathematical certainty. I am not asking you to overhaul your entire life by tomorrow morning. Please, do not try to do that. Instead, I want you to look at a simple menu of micro habits and pick just one. Maybe your new habit is to spend 3 minutes planning your day before you touch your phone. Maybe it is to read just 2 pages of a book before you sleep. Perhaps it is to speak one single English sentence out loud while you wait for your morning coffee to brew. Or it could be as simple as drinking 1 glass of water the moment you wake up. Society will try to tell you that these actions are too small to matter. Let them be wrong. We know about the roots growing in the dark, and we know that these tiny seeds are the only way to build a forest. Looking back on this journey we have shared today, I realize that the most beautiful part of this philosophy is not the big result at the end. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence that grows inside you when you realize you can finally trust yourself again. For years, I lived in a cycle of setting massive goals and then breaking every promise I made to myself. Each time I quit, a little piece of my self-respect disappeared. I felt like a stranger to my own dreams. But when I finally embraced the power of the small, everything changed. I stopped chasing the giant, dramatic win and started falling in love with the tiny, ordinary do. We often think that life is made of big moments, the graduation, the promotion, the day we finally speak fluently. But the truth is that life happens in the silent minutes between those events. It happens in the way you spend your first 5 minutes in the morning and your last 10 minutes at night. When I stopped trying to be a superhero and started being a person who simply shows up for 5 minutes, the heavy weight of failure was lifted off my shoulders. I no longer felt like a loser because I didn't study for 3 hours. Instead, I felt like a winner because I studied for 5. This shift in perspective is the greatest gift you can give yourself. The deep lesson I want you to take away is this: your identity is not a fixed thing you are born with. It is a choice you make every single day. Every small habit you repeat is a vote for the person you want to become. If you want to be a writer, do not worry about the book. Just write 1 sentence. If you want to be healthy, do not worry about the marathon. Just put on your shoes. The true destination of this journey is not the goal itself. It is the transformation of your character. To apply this in your life right now, look at the area where you feel the most overwhelmed. Whether it is your career, your health, or learning a new language, stop looking at the mountain. Look at your feet. Ask yourself, what is the smallest possible step I can take in the next 10 minutes that will move me 1% forward? Do that one thing, and then give yourself permission to be proud of it. Success is not a trophy you catch. It is a system you follow. I would love to hear your perspective on this. If you had to pick just one area of your life to improve by only 1% today, which area would it be? Please leave a simple comment below and share your thoughts so we can all learn from each other's experiences. Also, if you found value in our conversation today, Please subscribe to Glaze English. Your support helps us stay motivated to keep creating content that helps us all grow together. Thank you for being here. And remember, big changes really do come from small habits.